as you well know, it's the technoscience that we talk about the most, right? In today's world, they're everywhere in the world. So it's we witness very important progress in the past decade. And in the past few years in particular, but it started before. And it's very hard to figure out what we should think about AI if we're not an expert in the field. Of course, the technology is very complex, and the kind of discourses around AI in the public spheres, it's there are very contrastive views that are defended by very prominent people. And sometimes I take a step back because I've been working on AI now for almost maybe 7 or 8 years, and sometimes I try to take a step back and try to understand, okay, what would I think about AI if I wasn't researching on the topic? And I think that I would be lost because there are so many different views that we hear, and these views are very, very um, uh, uh, contradictory in some cases. Okay, so I'll try to help you figure out at least what you think about AI. So that's the main goal of my talk today, and also about the different ethical issues that they raise. Okay, so let's first define the term, right? Let's begin with trying to understand what researchers and developers, programmers in AI are trying to do. So since the beginning in the, let's say, 1950s, computer scientists have been trying to program computers so that they can do different cognitive tasks that we think are reserved for the human mind, basically, right? So as human thinkers, we're able to do very different kind of cognitive tasks, and the goal is to make program computers so that they can perform the same task, right? So some of these, as Margaret Bowden says in her intro book on AI, some of these tasks are related to reasoning, right? So as human thinkers, we're able to reason either from first principles or by applying different logical rules and so on. So at the outset in the 1950s and 60s, that was the main goal, to try to make computers reason logically like we do. But other cognitive tasks are not related to reasoning, but it's more related to perception, right? We're perceiving different data and information coming from the external world, such as visual perception, for instance, right? We're seeing things or we're hearing things, and that's information that we can use to make some decisions, right? To decide how to act in different contexts or how to understand what's going on around us. So perception, that's also one of the broad task or competence that where they're trying to make computers good at. Different also cognitive tasks such as planning, for instance, predicting what's going to happen in the future. So anything that we do with our mind, they're trying to make computers capable of doing it also. Okay, so that's the goal since the beginning of AI. Okay, so I want to draw a distinction, and I hope that this distinction will help you kind of, figure out, what you think about different views about AI. So sometime, very often, now we hear about AI, and we're talking about the actual algorithms that are used to, behind or that powers different technologies. And these are what I call state-of-the-art AI systems, right? So that's the AI programs or algorithms that we know that actually exist, such as the algorithms that make, the design of a chatbot like ChatGPT possible, right? So LLMs are large language models. These are the kind of algorithms behind ChatGPT and other conversational agents that we now use quite widely. Okay, so these are AI systems that actually exist and that are used in different ways. Okay, but sometimes we also hear about what I call possible AI systems. So these are AI systems that haven't been developed yet. They don't exist yet. I personally think that we don't know if they will ever exist, but some people are confident that we're moving toward a much stronger form of artificial intelligence than the programs that we know now, even the best one, right? So the goal of many companies and researchers is to attain what they call AGI, that's artificial general intelligence. Okay, so and general intelligence, that's the kind of intelligence that we have. Okay, as human thinkers. So it's general in the sense that our intelligence allow us to resolve many different kind of problems, not only reasoning or logical ones, but trying to understand how another person feel, for instance, being capable of riding a bike or driving a car, for instance. So different kinds of skills that we have. And our intelligence is general in the sense that it's multi-dimensional, right? We can do many different things with our cognitive capacities. And the goal of many, like a company like OpenAI that commercialize ChatGPT, for instance, is to reach AGI. And many researchers think that we're on the path toward artificial general intelligence. Some even talk about super artificial intelligence. So not only human level artificial intelligence, but beyond human intelligence, right? So these are possible. We can conceive such system. We know that some researchers are working toward that goal, but there's absolutely no guarantee that that's actually doable, under our circumstances. But it's a project, it's a vision, and many things that with ChatGPT and other generative AI systems that we got closer to that goal. I don't think that we got significantly closer, but there are debates on this, and the community is divided on that issue. I also added conscious AI or sentient AI. So not only very smart artificial agents, but also artificial agents that would have the capacity to feel things, to have subjective experience, to be sentient, including maybe the capacity to suffer and to experience pleasure. So I also don't think that we're anywhere close that goal. And I'm not even sure that computers are made of the right kind of stuff to be conscious. But again, disagreement are widespread in the community, both in philosophy and computer science and in science in general. Okay, so sometimes people talk about these possible AI systems that haven't been designed yet. And in other cases, we talk about the actual algorithms that we use in different technologies today, okay? And they raise different ethical issues. Okay, so when I say that very serious people have different views than mine on possible AI and AGI and conscious AI, so one of the so-called godfather of modern AI, in the sense that Jeff Hinton is one of the researchers who really help pushing forward deep learning as an approach to artificial intelligence. And that's the dominant approach now. That's the dominant paradigm, including for large language models and so on. And last week he gave an interview and he said that he thinks that machines actually are closer to humans than we think. Okay, so and he actually thinks that chatbot like ChatGPT actually understand what we're asking them, right? So with a chatbot like ChatGPT, we prompt them, right? We ask them a question or in a natural language, in Turkish or in French or English, and the chatbot is able to generate an answer that is very often is rather accurate, but as I will say, not always. But syntactically, it's always well constructed, right? It looks very plausible. The kind of answers that they give us, because it's always well structured syntactically. But I will try to show that semantically, with regard to the meaning of the answers, there are important problems because they don't actually understand the words that they are kind of processing, right? But I just want to highlight that we disagree, right, among those who think seriously about AI. And Hinton is one of those who think that the chatbots actually understand what we're asking them and the kind of answers that they generate. Okay, I have been defending a different view that I call a deflationary view. I think that higher forms of complex intelligence, as far as we can tell, are the prerogative of some living biological entities submitted to the long process of biological evolution, right? So I don't think that computers are made of the right stuff to acquire that kind of complex and multifaceted intelligence. But that's, of course, a speculative position, and debates are raging in the community, okay? And those who think that we're on the path toward artificial general intelligence, their main concern is with what they call existential risk, right? So, of course, if we create a highly sophisticated machine that becomes autonomous and highly intelligent, then we cannot but ask the question, can we control such entities, right? If they are both highly intelligent and autonomous, and if they give to themselves their own goals, if they can form intentions and so on, will we be able to control them? Will they accept to serve our purposes? Some worry that we won't be able to control them, and that at some point they could make decisions or have goals that diverge from our own basic interests, including our very own survival. Okay, so that's where we are in AI ethics. There's a branch of AI ethics that is on what they call the value alignment problem. How do we align our values with the decisions of the machine, and how do we make them safe? And by safety, they mean, how do we ensure our very survival while we are developing highly advanced AI systems, okay? So that's one branch of AI ethics. Now, I don't think that existential risk is what we should really care about right now or focus on, because I don't think that we're on the path towards artificial general intelligence. But even if one has a deflationary view like mine, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take AI seriously as it exists today. And here I distinguish between two kinds of potentially catastrophic risks created by AI. So the first one is the one that I just mentioned, right? So if we have AGI, then maybe we won't be able to control them. Even people fear that we won't be able to unplug the machine because they will outsmart us, okay? But let's say that we leave that aside. Current AI systems are still very powerful, pieces of technology, and they can be used in different malevolent ways by bad actors, right? By people who want to use the technology to achieve morally wrong ends, right? That's entirely possible, of course, right? With all powerful technologies. That's we call dual use theory in the ethics of technology, right? Nuclear energy can be used to generate, energy power, or it can be used to design bombs, right? As we well know. And the same with AI. So I don't dismiss the possibility that AI could be used by humans in a way that creates catastrophic risks for us. And as I will conclude later, that means that we should regulate existing AI technologies very, very robustly. Okay. So why are we talking so much about AI now? Many heard about AI in the recent the time in the last decade when AlphaGo defeated one of the best Go players in the world, right, in 2016. So the AlphaGo was based on was using a deep learning algorithm, and it learned how to play Go and to a level superior to the best human Go players, right? So that was quite an accomplishment by AI researchers. So that's Lee Sedol. They're discouraged after a move by AlphaGo. Okay, so how does AI do it? How does it become so good at certain tasks? So here with that kind of AI systems, and I insist on that kind of system because, as I said, it's not only AlphaGo and other algorithms. The large language models that we talk so much about are also based on deep learning or deep neural network, artificial neural network. Okay, so an artificial neural networks. As Kaplan defines it, can see them as constructions that resonate with arbitrarily complex patterns present in their input. Okay, so you have to imagine very, very, very large data set, right? Training data, like millions and sometimes billions of data within a data set. And within that set, the algorithms is able to discover or extract patterns that no human could have identified in such a huge data set, right? The algorithm, while you're training it, it doesn't do it, the first time, but it's an iterative process, and at some point it gets good at detecting or discovering very, very large correlations within the data set, and these correlations or patterns in the data are linked to the task that we give to the AI. So sometimes it can be, okay, so classify different objects, right? If it's what we call a machine vision algorithm, so you have to be able to distinguish between cats and humans and dogs, for instance. And by looking at the data, at some point it tracks all the points that are related when there's a cat on the picture, and it's able then to classify the object, in that case the animal, correctly. And same thing with a large language model, right? A large language model, it looks like they are understanding the question that we ask them, right? What was Spinoza's view of God, for instance? It gives us an answer that looks pretty good. So it seems that it understands what the question and Spinoza's philosophy, for instance, but what it really does is, so it's about predicting the words that follow a particular string of words, okay? So let's see our prompt, the question that we ask ChatGPT, for instance. Let's see that as a string of a sequence of words. And what the AI does is predicting, okay, what follows on average after such a string of words, right? And just by predicting the next word, it's able to generate answers that are very well constructed and that are sometimes often rather accurate, okay? So it's the same kind of approach. I won't be too technical in that talk, but one thing that we need to understand if we want to understand both the capacities and the limitations of these AI systems, we need to understand a bit how they work. And this then again protects us against, say, the fantasies about, that we're close toward artificial general intelligence and so on. So what they do is in that training phase, as I said, the AI is able to discover these significant relations between the data, so these patterns. And then when you use it in the real world, right? Because that's the goal. You want an AI system that will predict, okay, will that person, that candidate, will he or she be good at that job or not, right? Or if it's a self-driving car, you want to make sure that the self-driving car will react appropriately in different circumstances, right? So you want to use them in the real world. And then in the real world, it sees data that it didn't see, right, in the training phase, right, by definition. But what it does is that it look for similar patterns in the real world, right? So it says, okay, in that kind of situation, even if it's not exactly the same kind of situation, it reminds me of what I saw during the training phase. And then, when I see this, I need to act like that. Okay, so that's how it does it. Okay, and that's a very, very powerful approach to AI. But we have to keep in mind that the output of an AI system is always probabilistic, right? It's a score, it's a prediction on what will happen, but always probabilistic. And sometimes the degree of confidence is high, sometimes it's a bit lower, but it's always a prediction on what we should do or what should follow a question and so on. It's predictive, and it kind of infers an answer from the relation between the data that it has access to. Okay, so it doesn't kind of have any kind of direct access to the truth or to the external reality. It's all about correlating data points and making a prediction based on the relations between the data point. Okay, so I think that already kind of demystifies the best AI system that we have. So as we can tell now, they are massively inductive in the sense that they learn. We talk about machine learning, right? They learn by looking at millions of examples, right, of cases, right? And then they try to generalize, to apply what they learn, outside the training phase, but they learn by looking at individual cases. And sometimes, that's entirely predictable. They will naturally struggle with situations that are less familiar, right? That's situations or data points that maybe they were there in the training phase, but they were kind of far from the distribution of think about the curve in the distribution in the data, and you have data points that are rather far. But in real life, these data, these outliers, might be very significant, right? There might be one fact about the person that you need to take into consideration if you're gonna make a prediction about whether, okay, will that person repay a loan if we give her a loan for buying a house, or will that person show up for her trial if she has bail, for instance. So the humans are able to kind of factor in data points that are a bit unfamiliar or a bit strange, but that's a huge problem for deep learning algorithm. And we don't have AI systems that are capable of reasoning logically. If you ask logical questions to ChatGPT, sometimes it will guess the right answer, sometimes it's totally off, and there's no kind of common sense that in most cases. Sometimes we just know intuitively that something doesn't make sense, right? And sometimes large language models totally lack common sense. Okay, so let's now let's see how such systems are actually used in our life. And what I want you to consider here is that think about how ubiquitous AI has become in our life now. It's very impressive how widespread, omnipresent AI is now. Think about some of the most intimate spheres of human life, and you will discover that AI is there or can be used. Okay, think about the possibility, for instance, of training an algorithm on all the data produced by a loved one who recently died. Okay, so that's increasingly used. And some people are interested in creating kind of post-mortem digital avatars of their loved one, so that would give them a kind of form of immortality, I suppose, right? They could still interact with a chatbot trained on the data, all the text messages and all the emails and the video record or audio recordings of a person who died. And there was a Black Mirror episode precisely on that, as you may remember. And now with the generative AI that we have, it's something that can be done and that can be very realistic, right? So that's a highly intimate sphere of human life, and AI can be there, and I could multiply the examples. But at the other end of the continuum, we know that AI is affecting now our political debates, right, in a very, very concerning ways, right? So we know that we have AI systems that helps sharing some content, and that creates echo chambers or filter bubbles. But we can use generative AI also um, to create what we call deep fakes, right? Fake videos or recordings of someone, or to create fake news and share them afterwards. So from the personal to the political, AI is there. Okay, here are the kind of systems that AI is embedded in. Okay, so we can think first of AI algorithms as decision support tools. So that's when you use AI to make any kind of decisions, including what I call ethically high stake decisions, right? So if a physician use an AI system for diagnosis or for recommending a treatment, for instance, that's very high stake, right? Our basic health is at play. If a tribunal use an AI system to decide whether someone is eligible for bail, for instance, or what should be the sentence of someone who was found guilty. It's our basic legal rights, right, that are at play. Managers can use AI systems to monitor their employees, and our basic right to privacy and our autonomy is at play, and so on, right? So in many cases, it's used in ethically high stake situation, in the sense that our rights and freedoms are at play, or our basic well-being, safety, health, and so on. Okay, so that's a list of examples where AI is being used as we speak now. So you see the stakes are very high. But as an ethicist, right, we naturally inclined to think about the risk, the harm, and so on, and that's essential. But we should also think about the potential benefits, right? I sure hope that physicians and other health professionals can use AI to spot, say, cancerous cells or tumors much earlier on, right? So that we can start treatment earlier, and that can be life-saving, right? So there are potential benefits, but the stakes are very high in all these cases. Okay, another kind of AI systems, and that's one that we don't see. It's running in the background usually, but it's always there. So every time that you search something on Google or that you're using a social media or streaming platforms such as Netflix and so on, there is an AI algorithm running in the background trying to predict what will make you either click or buy or stay on the platform, and share some content or react to things that others have posted and so on. But as we all know now, it's the attention economy. The idea is to capture our attention, and they use AI system to predict what will capture our attention and click and buy and so on, right? So that it seems like the stakes are maybe lower here, because it's not like decisions about our health or our basic rights, but think about the impact of recommender systems on our autonomy, right? Our autonomy is, conditioned in part by the range of options available to us, right? And Now, recommender systems, all the systems that recommend content to us every time that we use a digital platforms, they kind of structure the our context of choice, right? And they are very they have a huge influence on the kind of content that we're exposed to. The mental content that we are exposed to is largely now determined by these predictive algorithms. Okay, so it has a very important impact on our kind of our mental life and our autonomy. And they are used to nudge us into acting in different ways, right? Okay, now the kind of AI systems that we talk the most about these days are these are generative AI, in the sense that they create content that we thought that were against the prerogative of humans, right? To create a well-structured text, for instance, or to write poetry, or to create visual art or music, videos, and so on. These are generative AI because they generate content, right? Not only like scores, like say the decision support tools, but actual content in a natural language, or pictures, paintings, and so on. Okay. So that's ChatGPT answering a question on Spinoza's conception of God. It's a rather trivial answer, but it's not inaccurate, right? It's well structured and it's not false. That's a painting that was generated with DALL-E or Midjourney that won at an art fair a couple of years ago. That's supposed to be a photo, a picture, but that was actually generated by an AI program, and it also won a kind of a contest. Okay, so it's quite impressive. Last type of AI system, robots. So that's when you use an AI, but you give the AI kind of a physical, kind of a body or a physical kind of envelope, and the entity is able to move in a physical space with some autonomy. So we can think about self-driving cars, but we can also think about what is called social robots, right? Robots designed to, say, intervene or with, say, kids on the autism spectrum, or with aging persons who lost some of their autonomy, and so on. Sex robots also are designed, and so on. So these are different kinds of AI systems, and they raise different ethical questions. Okay. That's a non-comprehensive list of the main ethical issues that have been discovered related to how existing AI systems are used. So all these kinds of systems, they generate a set of ethical problems, dilemmas, and in most cases, it's actual risks. They risk harming different people. So I won't have time to review all these issues, but I'll just mention a few of them. One of the most important one is AI's explainability problem, or opacity problem. So machine learning and deep learning algorithms in particular, or artificial neural networks, are seen as black boxes. Why? Because we know that we know what's going into them, right? The input, the data that is being processed by the algorithm, and we know the output, right? The decision, the recommendation, the answer to a prompt, or the picture, and so on. But we cannot say look inside, look at the code, look at the neural network, and kind of extract an explanation for the output. Okay, it's nowhere to be found in the code. If you look at the code, even an expert cannot explain why the AI came up with that particular decision or that particular output. Okay, so we cannot extract a set of explanations and reasons, considerations in favor of a particular output. It's too. It would take too long to explain, but it's too complex and it's impossible for now. So researchers are trying to come up with what they call explainable AI models, but it hasn't been cracked as of yet. It's still a problem. So of course, if you use them to make very high stake decisions as decision support tools, then it's a huge problem, right? That we cannot explain the decisions, because if say a police officer think that I'm a suspect on the basis of a facial recognition software, I need to understand, so why is it that the software thinks that it's me? Maybe I wasn't even there, or I was doing something else, I have an alibi, and so on. But the officer cannot ask the machine to explain why. Same with the judges who deny bail or a bank that denies a loan for a mortgage, for instance. Or if you're not admitted, you say you want to get into a PhD program, the university use a predictive algorithm to decide whether, okay, will that person finish or obtain her PhD in 5 years? The algorithm says no, that person will drop before. Again, the AI cannot provide justifications for their decisions, and we need to be able to assess the quality of the justifications to see if we were treated fairly, right? If the decision is rational and reasonable. Right now, we can. So that's one of my research topics now, and I defend in that paper the view that if we're going to use AI in high-stakes situations, the organizations that decide to use AI needs to retain the capacity to justify their decisions, even if they use AI. If the AI is not capable of generating reasons, then the humans need to be capable of justifying their decisions when our rights or well-being is affected. Okay. Another issues that I'm sure that you heard of, and that will be of interest to many of you, is the issue of algorithmic biases, right? So some would say, okay, algorithms are impersonal, right? They don't feel anything, despite some in science fiction sometimes they do, but in the kind of programs that we're talking about, we have no good reason to think that they feel anything. They don't care about any of us, but they shouldn't be biased against us, right? Against any groups in society. So perhaps they could help us make fairer decisions, right? Because they wouldn't have these biases or prejudices and so on. But actually, we realize, by using these systems that very often they are biased, and they come up with decisions or outputs that do, in fact, wrongfully discriminate against certain groups of within the population. So, for instance, an AI skin cancer tool being less accurate for dark skin patients, for instance, right? So I'll say why, but that's an example. Another one was a very famous one. So Amazon tried to use an AI algorithms to recruit new employees, including managers and so on. And it was found that it was biased against women. Okay, so why is it that impersonal algorithms sometimes discriminate? Well, it's because of what I said earlier, right? They are trained on data that was accumulated and data that reflect human decisions and human practices, okay? And including, say, past hiring decisions at Amazon. And if we notice that in the past, Amazon for senior managers and CEOs and so on, men are over represented. Well, the machine learning algorithms will pick up on these patterns because that's exactly what they're designed to do, and then they will use them to make recommendations or predictions. Okay, so they risk to amplifying existing inequalities and forms of exclusion, discrimination, and so on. And if we use them systematically, they systematize existing forms of discrimination. Okay, so that's another issue that I'm working on with my PhD students. AI is also raising very important questions about both related to work in general and both about distributive justice. That is, who is gaining from AI and the kind of automation that it makes possible, and who is at risk of losing, right? Maybe losing a job, or having some task automated, tasks that we found rewarding, and so on, and having less work maybe to do. And also questions related to the meaning of work. So many things that since now AI, progressed so much that many of us could, be replaced by AI systems at some point in the future. Because of the deflationary view that I defend, I don't think that we won't need human workers anytime soon. But again, influential colleagues disagree with me on this issue. But we could think before that art was a sphere of human life that was kind of immune from automation and AI. But now, with that piece that I showed earlier that won the art fair, some are saying that even artists, right, are at risk right now. So again, back to Jeff Hinton, the deep learning pioneer, who said, well, now we need a universal basic income because we're all at risk, right? Again, I think that he exaggerates the capacities of AI. I think that many tasks that we're performing now cannot be automated, but we do have to think about, so who is more at risk? Maybe some of us, within the workforce who can more hardly work with AI and other digital technologies. There are maybe categories of employments that are more at risk, and we should think about the social policies that could help them, adapt if they are adversely affected by automation. Okay, another very important issue is related to specifically to generative AI. We know that these tools can be used, right, to disinform, right, to create fake news and other false content, including deep fakes, so that like very realistic imitations of people, either pictures or videos or audio recordings and so on. Not only they can be used to create fake, false, contents, fake news and deep fakes, but also they have that very basic limitations now that even the most powerful language models hallucinates. I think that it's better to say that they confabulates, but anyhow, in the literature, it's called hallucinations. And that's when ChatGPT or Gemini or another models come up with answers that is just purely made up, right? They invent answers that are actually false, while affirming that they're true propositions. Okay, so hallucinations are generated content that is nonsensical or unfaithful to the provided source content. So that's a problem that wasn't solved as of yet. Here, yeah. So recently, that's a couple of months ago, right? Google's brand new AI models, Gemini, recommended adding glue to pizza. so that it would stick more, right? When I was saying that it was lacking common sense, that's an example. Okay, these are examples of deep fakes. Okay, that never happens. The Pope wearing that trendy puffy coat and Donald Trump running and so on. Okay, so I think I have only a few minutes left. I'll skip a few just to go to the ethics. So these problems are very, very important, right? I think that we need to take them very, very seriously, and that we need to design binding legal regulations that would regulate the users of these different AI technologies. So that's one of the reasons why the field of AI ethics is so vibrant now. One of I think that was entirely predictable, but one approach that doesn't work very well is just trying to apply one of our standard ethical theories, at least in Western ethics, right? The ontology, consequentialism, virtue ethics, to the problems raised by AI. But what actually happened, and I call that phase one in AI ethics, was coming up with either codes or charters or declarations of the kind of principles that we should uphold while we're developing and using AI systems. So I was involved in the Montreal Declaration for Responsible Development of AI. We came up with these 10 principles. There are the OECD principles that are very influential. There's a UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI. And in all these cases, it's list of principles. And of course, those who were doing ethics before knew that that couldn't suffice, right? That would not be sufficient because principles are by definition abstract, right? And can be interpreted and applied in different ways. And by themselves, ethical principles are non-binding, right? They don't create legal obligations. If they're not respected, there's no sanction, and so on. So many started to worry that AI ethics was contributing actually to ethics washing, right? That so large corporations would say, oh, we have our kind of code of ethics, here are our principles, and that's what inspires us when we develop AI systems. Of course, if that's all what AI ethics has to offer, that wouldn't do at all, and it could be accused, I think, of contributing to ethics washing. So with one of my PhD students, we started to articulate and defend what we call an institutionalist approach in AI ethics, where the priority in AI ethics now should be to contribute to the construction of a binding legal framework that would create legal obligations for those who use and deploy AI system. And that's where we are now. Of course, some other AI ethicists are more focused on trying to make, say, designers and developers more virtuous, so applying virtue ethics, or trying to convince developers to kind of endorse ethical principles and apply them in their practice. Okay, so that can be good, but I think that it needs to be backed up by legal constraint, actually. And that's the only realistic approach if we want to make sure that we're developing AI in an ethically responsible way. So that's where we are now, and I was very happy to see that the EU AI Act was endorsed by the European Union recently. And in conclusion, I'll just finish by saying that now I think that one of our collective priorities should be to build different institutions, policies, legal regulations that can ensure what we call in the literature meaningful human control over AI systems. And we should not be fooled by this idea that AI can be autonomous, that AI can replace humans at many complex tasks, but we need to see that they create these very serious ethical risks, and we need to come up with the appropriate institutional answers to these risks. And it's very difficult to do because the developers are very powerful economic actors today, but we did it with regard to other technologies in the past, and that's what we should do now. So that's what I'm going to conclude with this idea that we're in an other phase in AI ethics now, where we need to build the right kind of institutions for regulating and governing AI systems. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Maclure, for this very insightful and thought-provoking talk. I'm sure the audience is eager to learn more. So I would like to open the floor for questions, and we have several of them. And I would like to start myself, actually. You have indirectly answered my question, but I would like to hear more. Can artificial intelligence, I mean state-of-the-art artificial intelligence system, establish its own epistemology, or will it remain reliant on pre-existing knowledge frameworks? What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for the good question. As we speak, if we remain within that dominant paradigm, say deep learning or artificial neural network, it's a necessary conditions that we provide data to the systems. They cannot learn any other way than with the data that we produce, that we make available. Sometimes we have to prepare it also, the data, to curate it in a way. It's actually becoming even a problem for those who want to go beyond, say, GPT-4 now, and they're trying to design, say, GPT-5. They're running out of data now because GPT-4 was trained over the entire internet, basically. And to achieve new, say, milestones in the development of AI systems, they would need more good quality data. And now it's hard to find. So that's why I'm a deflationist. It's not learning in any kind of autonomous ways, and it doesn't even have the capacity, the cognitive capacity to add different capacities, okay? So it's only learning from this very inductive, radically inductive ways. And on the side, you have many humans trying to provide feedback so that they can learn. You know, when they create nonsense, they hallucinate and so on. So you have like hundreds of human workers commenting, evaluating their answers, giving feedback so that they can stop making but that's all in the background. That's all invisible kind of work. And AI doesn't have the kind of autonomy that we associate with it now. So as we speak, it doesn't have the internal resources to acquire, new cognitive, say, modules. And since it's not a biological organism, it doesn't evolve also by itself. So it's heavily dependent on humans.
Thank you very much for your answer, Professor. So we have a couple of questions. I would like to start with Nursena Çetingül. She asks about the concept of machine understanding. Is the Chinese room thought experiment still powerful and valid? If not, what's the strongest or current argument against it?
All right. Wow. A very good question. Thank you. Yes, that's one of my favorite papers in the philosophy of AI, the John Searle's paper where he puts forward the Chinese room argument. And so basically, I think that his arguments still apply today. When he wrote his paper, it was another paradigm that was dominant in AI. It's what we call symbolic AI. So computer scientists tried to come up with programs that were rule-based. Okay, so you try to say, okay, so you want to create an AI that can do a particular thing, say play chess, for instance, and you have to come up with all the rules or instructions that the program will have to follow in order to achieve its goal. Okay, so that's rule-based, or it's more like trying to reproduce logical reasoning. But now, so as we saw, it's totally different, but the same point applies in the sense that with a deep learning algorithm, all you have access to from the point of view of the AI, it's the binary code, right? So all the data is transformed into digital data. So it comes in the form of a code. And then the neural networks kind of does its computation, attributes weights to the different, say, artificial neurons. And at the end, there's an output, which is a score or prediction or something like that. So Searle's basic point was that the computer doesn't have any kind of direct access to the world, right? It has no, in the technical sense, intentionality in the sense that our mind aims at different things in the world, okay? Or the words that we try to understand, have content, and we understand that content because we're in touch with different things in the world. The AI today still only deals with the digital, kind of numbers, and these numbers, the meaning attached to them is totally escape the AI. So it's good at computing, crunching numbers, and then coming up with good predictions, but it still doesn't have the kind of access to the source of the meaning of what's going on. So I think that Searle is still right after all these years.
Thank you very much. Sorry, second question is, what's the relationship between data privacy and artificial intelligence? Which measures can be taken? To whom do the responsibilities may have arise during the use of artificial intelligence belong? And how should they be determined?
Okay, so first question about privacy, the second one about responsibility or accountability. Okay, so yes, I didn't talk about it, but one of the major challenges raised by the use of AI is that it's increasingly difficult to protect privacy in a robust way in the age of AI. Why? Because privacy laws were conceived at the time where technologies that we had were very different. And what's at the core of data privacy protection regulations is the idea of personal information, right? So, say my name and any kind of information that can kind of reveal my identity, that can be tracked back to me as an individual person, that these are personal information, biometric data, and so on. So that's all well and good, but AI, the way that it works today, can use non-personal data to infer sensitive information about all of us. Okay, so data that are not protected by privacy laws, the data that do not look sensitive or significant by itself, but when you correlate it with other non-personal information, you can infer in a predictive fashion, probabilistic fashion, you can infer, so what's your political allegiance, for instance? What's your sexual orientation? What's your religious or spiritual convictions? Everything can be inferred if you have enough data about someone, and we leave so much data out there, right? So how to protect, against these kind of invasive inferences, that's a huge concern now. About accountability, more briefly, my view is that humans should always remain or seen as morally responsible, and they should take responsibility for the way that they use AI, okay? So it's tempting to say, well, AI is so powerful now that I'm not responsible, it's the AI, but no one forces anyone to use AI. And if you're going to use in your organization, let's say the judicial system or in healthcare or in police forces, if you use AI, the human deciders should be seen as blamable if something wrongs happen, because no one forces them to use them. Given the limitations and the ethical problems, if an organizations use AI, they should also come up with the right framework to make a responsible use of AI.
Thank you very much. Another question: What steps should be taken to increase the representation of women in the artificial intelligence development process?
Yes, that's also a very relevant topic. So what was discovered empirically is that, of course, this is a kind of a heavily it's a field dominated by men and white men in particular. At every step in the kind of the pipeline, and yeah, sometimes even if say the engineers or the programmers, they really don't want their AI to have different biases and to discriminate. Their own unconscious, say, biases or preferences and so on, make it so that the way that they design the AI will make it more biased against a minority group or against women. So I know that, of course, one of the first answer is that let's try to create environments that are much more welcoming for women and that make such careers more attractive to women. And that's, I think, a very basic first step. So, but I think that it's not enough, right? But it's a necessary kind of first step. And then we need in our regulatory apparatus, we need to find ways to audit AI systems so that we have information on how they affect different groups of the population, because now we don't know, and it's clear that they can have adverse effects on some groups, and in many cases it will be for women. So we need to develop standards for how. So if you're going to use AI, you need to audit it, and the audit need to be independent, it need to be robust, and so on. So we're in the process. That's part of the kind of institutional answers that we need to come up with now, different ways to audit, monitor AI systems.
So another question asks, how could sex robots influence gender equality and relationships in positive or negative ways? They're asking what you think on the issue.
Yes, I think that's a very important issue also. So because there's so much to do in AI ethics now, I focus more, say, in ethics, you can think about the just and about the good, right? Or about the just and the prudent or the wise, right? And now I focus a lot on the just because, the harms are so numerous and important that we need to come up with the right rules. But we should also think about how will AI transform us, right? Is it transforming us for the better? What are the risks? What are we losing? And what kind of effects they have on what it is to lead a good human life? So when we're interacting with AI systems in these spheres of intimacy, we need a reflection on, is that contributing to the good life or not? But with regard to the question, yes, I think that we need, that's something, unfortunately, that I cannot have a kind of a definite answer. I think that we will need social scientists to conduct studies, rigorous studies on the effects of using AI. Let's say a post-mortem digital avatars or a sex bot or a AI coach, as they're calling it, and so on. All these artificial agents that we interact with, are they having a good transformative effect on us or not? And one of the sub-questions should be, how does it affect relations between humans, including between men and women, for instance? And there, yeah, I would need to know more about the empirical literature. Is it better to let the users do what they wish with the robots? Let's say that the robots is not sentient, doesn't feel anything, we cannot harm it. Let's say that we assume that. Is it better? Is it good, or does it risk disinhibiting, the user when they interact with actual sentient beings. That's an empirical kind of psychosocial question that I don't have the answer, but I agree that we need to investigate that before we're launching these products, in the wild. I'm very concerned about these uses of AI.
Thank you very much. Another question asks, can we talk about the cogito of artificial intelligence? Does it has ethical responsibility?
Okay, so I see two questions. So the cogito in Descartes was the the I that thinks, right? So I know that I'm conscious of, my experiences. I know that I'm dialoguing with you now, and it feels a particular way to discuss with you, and I know that I'm thinking these thoughts, and I know it from a first person perspective, right? So that's the cogito. I don't think that there's any internal perspective from the AI. It doesn't feel like anything to be a computer or an AI, according to my own kind of metaphysical view, because again, I don't think that they're the right kind of entity to have subjective experience, right? So they don't experience thinking as we do. Ethical responsibility. So that's a normative question, and I think that only the entities that have ethical responsibility are those that have at least a measure of free will, basically, right? That can act on the basis of their own volitions or beliefs or intentions. And as I said, I don't think that the AI, the most advanced ones, have any kind of intentions or first person standpoint, and that as a result, I don't think that they should be held morally responsible for their actions, because there's not that kind of measure of free will. And if there's no free will, then it doesn't make sense to blame them, right? Or to praise them for their action. But yeah, that's rather speculative, but that's my view based on my prior assumptions that I shared with you.
Thank you very much. Another question asked, one of the main phases of AI is its use in justice to accelerate the judgment process, as we observe its use in China. So AI can judge people. During the ruthless invasion of Gaza, Israel army used AI in target selection and engagement, which caused civilian casualties and huge collateral damage. Obviously, AI can save the war criminals as a scapegoat. The question is, when AI commits a crime against humans, can we judge it? If so, how and which authority can do that? Maybe we need to invent an authority to define the boundaries of potential crimes against humanity.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. There's a lot in that question. It's true that the international law and the ethics of war in general, I think, need to be kind of updated to take AI into account now. So that's true. Is there an acceptable use of AI when we're conducting war? I myself find it too risky for like civilians. And let's say that you want to accept that there are more just ways to conduct war, right? That just war theory is right. Okay, that's a big assumption, but let's say that it is. Then we can ask, okay, so can it be acceptable to use AI, say, powered drones that have like lethal weapons and so on? I find it extremely risky, but of course it will be used, if we have a realist perspective. But based on everything that I said before, there's no way that we should see the AI as having significant agency here. It has to be programmed by humans with the intention of being used, deployed in a war zone, and it's the human that decides that, okay, let's use that AI drone in that context against that population, and so on. So we should always trace moral responsibility back to the humans who make that decisions. The AI doesn't have nearly the kind of agency that would justify, kind of excusing even the humans, right, in that context. But on the more political note, I would sign. There were declarations asking for banning, AI lethal weapons in the past, and I would fully endorse these demands not to use them, not to deploy them in war context.
Thank you very much. A similar question, actually. What do you think about the idea of giving legal responsibility to AI robots? Is this can lead or make rather the society to post-humanistic framework? Also, in terms of law, can it be possible that giving the responsibility to AI about some disputes or crimes, can the situation harm the sense of justice in society? What are the risks you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I saw these proposals here and there that we might want to grant legal personhood to robots. Um, yeah, I would need to look more deeply into it, but I find it hard to understand why we would want to do that. I understand why, say, a corporation can have legal personality in the sense that, okay, if there's bankruptcy, it's the corporation that goes bankrupt and not like the individuals do not lose anything. That I understand, but I don't see how that's relevant to AI. I understand why we want to grant rights to animals because they are sentient, they can suffer, they can be mistreated, and so on. I don't see the why we would need to grant any kind of legal personality or even more metaphysically like personhood to AI. These are, yeah, machines designed by humans. Humans remain, morally accountable. And yeah, everything that I said about agency, free will, and so on still applies here. So I, I'm not inclined to think that that's the right way to go. The right way is to kind of responsibilize every human actors involved, in the process of designing and deploying AI systems.
Thank you very much. Our final question is, hello everyone, thank you, Professor Maclure. I'm wondering the major reasons and the motivation behind the AI developments and which is quite hard to keep up. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. That should be the first question, right, that we ask. So it's a kind of a teleological questions in the sense that it's about the telos, right? The aim. Why is it that we're doing it? And many things that at least their goal was benevolent or beneficent in the sense that they think that it can serve humanity. They think that creating intelligent non-human entities could help us attain our goals and solve important problems. So I, we might think that, okay, maybe that's a bit naive, but okay, so if we can have AI systems say that helps us in the healthcare system to provide better care, well, okay, so that's good. If we can optimize the way that we use, say, energy by having algorithms that able to predict when we need to heat and when we can reduce the temperature, the heat, and so on. We can think about AI systems that have could serve important goals that we have. But more fundamentally, the main players in that sphere, they want to create AGI, and they think that AGI, okay, some of them think that that would be good for humanity because you create more intelligence in the world, and then you're better able to solve our main problems. Okay, so I don't think that we're going to create AGI, but if I would think so, I would think that it would be unbelievably risky, right, to create that kind of highly intelligent entities that we would need to find ways to interact and live peacefully with. So if I think that that was, an achievable goal, I would think that I would be on the side of those who think that, well, that creates an existential risk, at least for us. But so, yeah, something that more intelligence in the universe is always better. Other thing that, no, it creates risks that are too important. I'm a deflationist, so I think that let's focus on the AI that we know. And these AI, even if these are impressive pieces of technology, there's no denying that they're still very cognitively limited. And let's focus on governing these systems.
Thank you very much, Professor Maclure, for this fascinating talk and the Q&A session. We really hope that you meet your Turkish audience very soon again, and
Absolutely.
hopefully this time in person.
Yes.
Would love to have you in Turkey. And on behalf of KADEM Webinar Series Organizing Committee, I would like to wish everyone a very good evening, and we hope to see you again with our coming seminar talks and webinar talks. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you. It was a fascinating discussion, very stimulating. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.